Welcome to the Monday, November 17th, 2025 joint meeting of the Islands and Mainland Planning Commissions. This is a joint meeting of the Islands Planning Commission and the Mainland Planning Commission. Both commissions will hear the presentation and conduct one public hearing. Each commission will then take its own separate motion and vote on each item. I'm going to read the procedures for the public hearings. Public comments on public hearing items will be limited to 30 minutes each for each opposing side, with a maximum of 5 minutes allocated to each speaker. Comments are to be limited to relevant information regarding your position and should avoid being repetitious. If your group has a spokesperson, please allow that individual to present your group's position in the time allotted. The applicant may then provide a rebuttal to any testimony. The chairman may terminate testimony if it becomes repetitive. The chairman will terminate a speaker's time if the speaker begins personal attacks. Your cooperation in this process will be greatly appreciated. Prior to us getting started, we lost one of our planning commissioners, Matthew Permar, a couple of weeks ago, and we would like to have a moment of silence before we get started. Y'all would just join me in that. Thank you. Staff, do we have any announcements? Yes, if you would.
So good evening, Commissioners. Stephanie Lee, Planning and Zoning Director. So the two items that are on your agenda this evening are the draft zoning ordinance and the draft subdivision regulations. So we have noticed these for public hearings tonight. And we did put out an agenda packet that had links to both of those drafts, which are on our website. They're currently accessible from the homepage of the glenncounty.org website, as well through our planning and zoning page. And then there was an agenda packet that also included a summary of some of the key changes in the code between our current code and our proposed. That doesn't include every change, but it does include some of the more significant key changes that our staff noted between the different drafts. So we have noticed for public hearing tonight, and so the commission will be taking comments from members of the public. And what staff had recommended, leading up to this meeting, we did hear quite a bit of feedback from members of the community about wanting more time with these ordinances. Wanting more time to review them. They're hefty documents. There's a lot in them. And although this has been a project that has been ongoing for a number of years, these most recent drafts are more newly released. They're from November 3rd. So hearing, from the community that they did want more time with this, our recommendation to the planning commissions was to defer these ordinances to what we would call a date uncertain, which basically means tabling them to a future date. And during that time, we would allow the community more time to dig into these ordinances, as well as we would offer a couple different town halls. So right now we're potentially looking at, let me go to my slide on that. So really over the next couple months is what we were thinking of. So during December, the week of December 7th, and we don't have a date or location yet for that, but we will announce that. We would have a town hall, and then we'd also have another one the week of January 11th. And those would be opportunities for the public to provide comment to us and learn more about these ordinances. And then with that, what we would propose is for the next joint planning commission meeting of both planning commissions again would be the week of January 18th. So we're looking at roughly 2 months from now. We'd come back together with both planning commissions, we'd renotice and have another public hearing that evening, and then perhaps during that meeting, the planning commissions may want to make a recommendation to the board on those ordinances, or perhaps they would need more time and defer those ordinances to a future meeting where there could be further discussion. And then with that, potentially February 5th would be the Board of Commissioners public hearings on both of these drafts, if they receive action from the commissions on a recommendation that week of the 18th. So these are kind of our tentative thoughts on how we'd like to proceed with these to give the community more opportunity. And so tonight, what you all can do is, if you would like to make a motion to, on these ordinances at this time and then open it up for a public hearing, or you can choose to have the public hearing first before making those motions. That's really your choice this evening. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. And our county attorney is here if there's any questions procedurally as well for this evening. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? This time, I'd like us to go ahead and take a vote. TA-25-02, zoning ordinance rewrite. To repeal this entirety existing Glenn County ordinance and adopt a new Glenn County zoning ordinance, including updated zoning districts, development standards, definitions, and administrative procedures. Also TA-25-03, subdivision regulations rewrite. To repeal in its entirety the existing Glenn County subdivision regulations and adopt new Glenn County subdivision regulations, including updated procedures and standards for subdivision design, review, and approval. Do we have a motion on those?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to defer.
All in favor? She knows.
All right, now I have to do the same exact thing for the Mainland Planning Commission. TA-25-02, zoning ordinance rewrite, and TA-25-03. I need a motion to table or defer this to a date undetermined.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to defer.
All right, Commissioners, I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Just want to make sure we're still having the public hearing.
Absolutely, we're gonna have a public hearing. All right, so I got a motion and a second. No discussion. All in favor? 5-0. All right, got a 5-0 vote. Okay, Commissioner Nash.
We are going to defer this, and we'll now open the public hearing.
I would like to say, I'm very surprised that we don't have more of the public, involved here tonight. We should have 2 or 3 rooms slap full of people. Our county commissioners and our mainland planning commissioners are probably taking up the most important item that's been passed or denied in Glenn County in probably the last 50 years. And I just don't understand why the public doesn't get more involved. I'm just estimating there may be 50 people from the public here. There should be 500 or 5,000. It's very detrimental to us folks, us taxpayers, people that live in our community. We better get involved, and we better stay involved until this is corrected, because it's not correct now. All right, Commissioner.
All right, I'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Anybody from the public like to step forward and speak in favor of this, rewrite? No.
No, we voted to defer. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor or in opposition?
Is that to either ordinance at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
So, do I need
Please
to
come
vote?
forward.
Good evening, I'm Diane Waldron from Sea Palms West, and I agree with you. I've partnered up with 4 other people on St. Simon's and have been working with Stephanie and some of the other staff trying to help with some of the subdivision standards, and we've come up with some solutions for rewrites, which would be great. By your not voting on them tonight does help. And I agree with you. I expressed today in our meeting that I think it is the responsibility of citizens to let commissioners know if there's something that's not right, because you all don't know everything. And if nobody states anything, then you're going to think everything is just fine. So I agree with you. that I think we need to participate for sure. And
Yeah,
thank you for all of your work.
Ma'am, are you in general, are you in opposition, or are you in favor of the way the rewrite is now?
In opposition,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
there are some changes that we would recommend, yeah.
Thank you for your comments.
Would you care to share what they are?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear them.
I'm gonna let my partner speak, cause she's ready for that.
Would you give us your name?
Diane Waldron.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. My name is Ann McQueen. I've owned a home on St. Simon's Island since 2010. I'd like to address the Conservation Subdivision Ordinance, Section 311. As written, Section 311 is almost identical to the existing ordinance, Section 626. Section 626 was adopted in 2015, but only recently applied in 2 developments on St. Simon's. Over the past few months, a group of us have met with the county 3 specific times. We believe the ordinance needs meaningful improvement. For example, increase the percentage of the conservation area to be preserved, eliminate detention ponds and other engineered features from being counted as conservation, and requiring upfront in the application process which entity will hold and monitor a conservation easement. We are committed as citizens to work with the county for a true conservation subdivision ordinance. We respectfully request that you do not adopt Section 311 as written. We request that a working group can provide an improved rewrite to Ordinance 311. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
I just have a short statement in support of the ordinance revision, specifically in regard to 3.9.8.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you give us your name, please?
Yes, sorry. My name is Mark Dodd. I'm a wildlife biologist with Georgia Department of Natural Resources, and I'm responsible for sea turtle conservation and recovery efforts in the state. I've been involved with the ordinance revision for about 7 years. It's been a long process, obviously. And we saw it as an opportunity to update lighting ordinance that's been in place for somewhere between 30 and 40 years. We've certainly learned some things about sea turtle biology since then. Thought it was appropriate to try to update the ordinance. The new ordinance builds on the older ordinance that was in place. Specifically, it addresses issues related to reducing uplighting, decorative lighting, but also it deals with the quality of light for beachfront properties, so turtles are much less disturbed by light in the longer wavelengths. They live in a blue world, so they're very cued into short wavelength blues and greens. And so the ordinance revision deals with that. And so overall, we feel like the ordinance adequately addresses the concerns, some of the problems we've had over the years, and we strongly support the revision. We're very grateful for it's been a long process. I've been to quite a few planning meetings over the years, and just we're grateful for all the work the planning commissions have done and the county staff that's been involved.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
comments. Appreciate it.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'll add to Mark's comments. My name is Catherine Ridley, and I'm fortunate enough to direct our St. Simon's Island Sea Turtle Project. Most of you have heard me speak on this issue many times before, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do so again tonight. I'd like to offer comments and support on specifically the updated beachfront lighting ordinance, which, as you know, is in place to protect Georgia's nesting and hatching sea turtles. Loggerhead sea turtles are a beloved species across Blaine County and directly responsible for driving our tourism industry and our quality of life. Tonight, I'd like to start by saying thank you to many of the folks in this room. This draft represents years of your hard work on behalf of the planning commissions, the board of commissioners, our county staff, the zoning committee, and of course hundreds of residents and stakeholders who have shared their input. We recognize it's been that tremendous amount of work, and we're grateful for everyone who cares enough about our community to participate in this very important process, as you said. As a result of all of this hard work, this is a strong beachfront lighting ordinance that we support as written. It replaces, as Mark mentioned, a more than 40-year-old ordinance that's antiquated and replaces that and reflects current lighting technology and our modern understanding of sea turtle biology and natural history. I appreciate very much that you have listened to input from myself and our turtle team, and especially pleased to see that the recommendations of Georgia's state sea turtle expert Mark Dodd of Georgia DNR are reflected. So we would support passing the beachfront lighting ordinance as written, and we would like to see it implemented immediately. Once passed, we're committed to doing the necessary work, the outreach, the education, and the monitoring to ensure that it's successful. I do, however, want to ask that we act with urgency. As we've discussed in every one of these meetings over the past 7 years, the numerous delays have meant that we do not have the tools that we need to protect our sea turtles on our beaches. And as a result, the public has been watching closely as we have, in some cases, lost nearly the entire nest to misorientations and have seen our overall nesting numbers limited. We, of course, recognize that there are many important comments that you're going to hear tonight, sections of the ordinance, and we hope that you will consider those thoughtfully as we move towards this final draft. But despite that, we cannot afford to keep adding on additional delays for a process that is, again, already dragged on for so long. We want to get it right, but we need this beachfront lighting ordinance in place this summer, and the clock is ticking to make that happen. So again, I want to reiterate my thanks, sincere thanks to each of you and to many of the folks in this room, and express our support for this beachfront lighting ordinance immediate passage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beth Bennett. I'm just a resident. I own a couple businesses here, but small ones. And I oppose the majority of the rezoning. When I reviewed your pages, specifically 140 through 151, they address the rezoning of residential and agriculture lands. And I'm one of the people that attended your last meeting for the Buck Swamp. I've listened to the things with the Myers Hill plantations. I've seen condos and things go up a lot. But when I look at the numbers that are presented in your papers, I see compared them to Chatham County, and they're incredibly close. And yet we have a significantly smaller population than Chatham County. So when we see things like 30 doors per acre, 6 to 7 houses per acre in some of these zones, they are the same as a population that has over 320,000 people when we're sitting at 80. Then I've reviewed your stuff from 2023 when the rezoning last happened and the presentation from the commission saying that we're expected to grow 20,000 people in the next 40 years. And the numbers so far that I can see that I've talked to with some school officials and things, they're not seeing that growth. And a couple people that, some of the fire people, but there's people who won't go on record with me at this point that are telling me that the infrastructure growth we have is substantial to meet some of these numbers. And when I consider some of the other things that I've spoken to the commissioners throughout the years, which is we rezone something and we think we have a plan, and then a couple years later something completely different happens with that lot. So I think the numbers that you all have presented are extremely large for the history in which we have, vacated our plan and gone to something else. So I just want to tell you that I'm highly opposed, and I'll hang out for your meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment on the proposed zoning ordinance changes. My name is Kat Montgomery. I'm a Glenn County resident, and I'm the South Coast Advocate for 100 Miles, a conservation organization that's based in Brunswick, and we are dedicated to protecting Georgia's 100-mile coast through advocacy, education, and community engagement. We submitted our specific recommendations to the Planning Commission using the zoning update email. But I'll go over a few of those requests with you tonight, and they're really focused on, we notice there's kind of a dissonance between the intent of certain districts and what is being applied. And as you said, Neil, that this is a very important thing to be passed. This is the single most important policy that will, show us what our future is going to look like living here. This will be the blueprint for the growth and the quality of life for decades to come, so we really need to ensure that these new ordinances bolster responsible and sustainable development. So with that in mind, we have suggestions to improve the forest agriculture FA zoning district, that's section 6.1.1. The intent of FA is to reserve these areas for agricultural purposes and to preserve rural character. The proposed density at two dwellings an acre is very high, and that contradicts the intent for this district. We recommend keeping the allowed density low, ideally 1 dwelling per 5 acres. 10 acres would be preferred, that would make it more aligned, again, with the intent for parcels that are zoned FA. Similarly, we recommend strengthening the conservation preservation, the CP zoning district, that's section 6.1.2. CP parcels are intended to preserve land, marsh, and water areas considered environmentally sensitive, and it's purposefully the most restrictive zoning district. However, the current draft states the following could be built on conservation land: government facilities, a utility substation, water and wastewater treatment plant, solar farms. Those are really large-scale projects that have a large footprint. So we would recommend changing all CP permitted uses in the allowed uses table in section, I think that's 4.2, 4.1, so change that from permitted uses to special use so that there would be a requirement for an extra step for it to be approved that would be based on the impact a proposed activity would have on that specific area. And also to reduce the maximum site coverage from 60%, which is very high, to 5%, to intentionally preserve conservation preservation spaces as is intended by the zoning district. And in keeping with conservation, we are pleased that the conservation subdivision tool, which is section 3.11, has been expanded to include mainland Glen, so it's not only allowed on St. Simons anymore, it'll be the whole county. And that's a great option that folks will now have to prioritize preservation and promote green space. But again, to ensure that the intent matches the application, we suggest removing the quote landscaped stormwater management facilities from the allowed uses section in the conservation area, as these features are essential infrastructure that are more similar to roads, parking lots, and impervious surfaces, which is in the prohibited uses section. So these kinds of features, they offer little to no conservation value, so they should not be counted as green space in the conservation area. Again, we make these recommendations to ensure the intent behind each specific district matches the applied use in terms of density, design, and permitted uses. Our formal letter offers more recommendations to bolster this ordinance draft to create a responsible framework from which our county can grow. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for an opportunity to come and speak tonight. My name is Mike Kennedy. I've lived in the community about 50 years. I've lived out off of 17 on Smith Road for almost 30. and never got that involved in zoning other than getting a surveyor to come out, survey the property I was buying, and live there. Come to find out, which I always thought it was a subdivision, but I think it's a FA single dwelling. And in those 30 years, no farms, agricultural, or animal. Nothing's been there. Somebody may have had some chickens and a rooster, but this January I woke up one morning and somebody was bringing in chickens, roosters, ducks, guineas, a menagerie of animals. When checking some of the codes, when we started having troubles with them, we don't have anything in Glenn County to address that. The only thing we have, dogs, cats, and horses on the beach. Nothing about any livestock where it's an issue. I've had to really have a hard time with the police to recognize that it was a code violation for noise ordinance. When you get woke up 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, every morning, it's an issue. I'm not talking about one rooster. I'm talking about, by the owner of it, 20 he had. He had them tethered out along my property lines. And I've been coming to the commission trying to ask people, what can somebody do when they wake up overnight and they say, well, it's forced agricultural? Well, it is. But don't the people that work that land have a responsibility to make sure they don't encroach on their neighbors, whether through noises? You know, I don't have a problem with this chickens, ducks, guineas, any of that, as long as it keeps the odor down. The thing is the roosters. I was told that we were looking at the possibility of expanding the square footage of what somebody can have to have those animals. But I'm gonna tell you, I've looked and looked and looked, and I'm gonna ask some of you to help me look after tonight when it's over with, to try to find something that's in there that addresses any of this. Because I don't see anything other than what they call a subdivision. I'm guessing where I live is not a subdivision, even though the only thing that's been in there that I'm aware of are single-family homes since the 50s. So I guess I'm opposed because I don't know what I'm looking for that's in the proposal. And I was hoping and been told we would have an opportunity to come and speak and find out things. So, you know, it's been very frustrating. And, you know, the police finally, after 4 months, I got them to come out and write a couple of citations for noise between 11 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning. More from about 3 or 4 to 10 or 11. Hell, they crow all day, but that's not an issue when they crow during the day.
Mr. Kennedy, you're getting close to your time.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you.
I hope we have an opportunity somewhere. I'm gonna try to get my information tonight where somebody can come and go, because as easy as it is to some of you, it's hard to some to decipher where you go.
We'll note your concerns, and I would definitely come to the public hearings, the town halls, and
Well, I know Neil's there, and I know Mrs. there, and I know several of you anyway, so now that I know who's on it,
we appreciate it.
you'll hear me.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good evening. My name is Lauren Zinsky. I'm the CEO of Golden Isles Association of Realtors and CEO of Golden Isles Multiple Listing Service. First of all, let me put this down a little lower. First of all, we just want to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for the hard work in the county's effort in updating the zoning and subdivision regulations. And many of you may have already been informed, but our local association has engaged the National Association of Realtors to assist us with the review of the new ordinances by using the Land Use Initiative project. That process takes about 15 business days. We're about in the middle of it now. So we're really looking forward to sharing those points that we find in there with you and making sure that this is right for property ownership and also for the real estate market in our area. A couple of things that, while we don't have our official speaking points together, but just a few things that we're keeping an eye on as we have discussions, is rebuild rights for our members in our community, and also enforcement expansion, just making sure that normal business occupancy certificates and those things aren't held up by certain enforcement of violations, or that they're not passed on unknowingly to new owners or buyers. So there's some things that we're looking forward to bringing to you, and we will be present at the upcoming public hearings, and we'll have specifics for you then. But just wanted to say thank you and look forward to getting this right so we can get it approved. So I know you guys have been working on it for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Judith Nichols, and I'm a homeowner on St. Simons Island for about the past 11 years. I first moved to the Golden Isles and St. Simons Island about 30 years ago and had to leave for some career opportunities, but couldn't wait to get back and was thrilled to get back about 11 years ago. I'm here tonight to speak specifically in favor of the beachfront lighting ordinance and to thank all of you for working so closely with our local and state experts in the rewriting of the proposal. I began volunteering with the St. Simons Island Sea Turtle Project several years ago, and I understand it has been a very lengthy process in working through some of the issues, and I just cannot say enough how pleased I am with to see the revisions. As a local realtor, I have the wonderful opportunity to meet a lot of folks who dream of moving here. They're either here on vacation and falling in love with the Golden Isles, or they have made the decision to move here, and they are all very excited to learn about our conservation efforts and understand the draw that the coastal lifestyle has for so many. And I believe that our sea turtle nesting population is a big part of that. So I just again would like to say that I truly appreciate the work and the time that has been put into improving the beachfront lighting ordinance for St. Simons Island, and quite frankly, bringing our barrier island into alignment with so many other barrier islands along the coast of Georgia with regard to this specific issue. I was here last year to speak to you, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to come back and truly thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to step forward?
First, thank y'all for your time. I'm here for myself and my wife. I'm Wade and Donna Williams. We live at 650 Beachview Drive in the village. The most wonderful, honorable Mr. Albert Finjig, I think, has been in contact with all people, and he's sent me things from Mr. Albert, and he would like for me to put this in the minutes from him, please. Just some rewrites of his stuff and some pictures and all. But to back up his brilliant brain and to speak for myself and my wife about Beachview Drive and the area. I didn't know I was going to be able to speak, so I wrote something real fast for you. But 650 Beachview Drive is known, a lot of locals, as Tillandsia. It's a 133-year-old true cottage, and we're the 5th caretaker in 133 years. People ask me, do you own this house? And I don't have the gall to say I own it. St. Simon's owns Thalassia. It's just too many stories of 133 years. And I feel, and all other owners feel, caretakers, stewards of Thalassia feel we're here to take care of it. It's just an honor to be the caretaker and the steward of Thalassia. The changes from the lighthouse to Demery Road, the known fact that it was always in the village preservation district seems to be changing, and we oppose any change to Beachview Drive. From the lighthouse to Demery, especially the upcoming rezoning on that area, we have the upcoming rezoning of ZM 2522, 646 Beachview, which will be a direct hit to our area, specifically the immediate neighbors, myself, and the Millers, and the whole street, the whole area. We ask to keep help and strength and to take care of the unique historical Beachview Drive. We oppose any commercial use of Beachview Drive. We would like to keep the zoning as it is, the preservation district area. Maybe even strengthen it. Maybe even think about the historical value of it. Maybe even from the lighthouse to the Demery area. Maybe you mentioned the VP zoning. Maybe anything to strengthen that area, but mainly just to help us preserve our area and strengthen our area, not take away from it. And any commercial use of it, please. That's what we ask for. And also honor Mr. Albert's writings, his sites he's already submitted. We thank you for the time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for all the time that you've already spent on this. My name's Tracy Moreland. I'm a local architect here on St. Simon's, and I've been a resident for over 30 years. So I'm not necessarily opposed. Because I haven't had time to fully review it, but I had a couple of thoughts that I just wanted to share. First of all, consider amending section 4.8.4, accessory dwelling size limits. This currently limits accessory dwellings to 800 feet with 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. I think this might be very appropriate for smaller lots, which there's quite a few. But I think there could be some consideration for larger lots, maybe a tiered approach, that if you've got a larger, an acre lot or some tiered approach that would allow you maybe to have 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And I noticed in the zoning ordinance draft, it said part of that purpose of an accessory dwelling is to accommodate family members, caretakers, workforce, housing, and retirees. So I kind of thought an example of that. If let's just say you've got an acre lot, and you may want to have an elderly parent live in an accessory dwelling, but that elderly parent may need a full-time caretaker. So if it was just a 1-bedroom space, it might not allow for that caretaker to stay there. So it was just one little example that I thought of. And then my second request would be to allow for a short grace period, and possibly provide a quick training support for the new zoning ordinance when it is adopted, because I feel like there's been so much time, everybody's put so much hard work into it, and I know that eventually this will get adopted and be better for our community. So I had a suggestion of a month or two after it's adopted, possibly a month, possibly 2 months, a time period for, to allow all the professionals, designers, engineers, other architects, time to really absorb it and learn what all has changed. And then I thought of the offering of a county staff-led, maybe a training session, where people could come and attend and just kind of learn all of the key things. And this document that was in the documents today was very helpful when I read through it. But I understand it's not everything, and I admit, like I said before, I haven't fully read through everything. So, anyways, that's all I have to say. And again, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, there's one thing that I would like to address. I could sit here all night and go through the details and tell y'all the things that are detrimental to our property owners and taxpayers, and I know you don't want to sit here all night. So I wrote these really brief questions, and this is pointed to our county attorney, our county staff, and our county commissioners. Please listen up. Public needs to listen also, but those are the county commissioners, the attorney, and our county staff are the ones that's going to vote this in, and the county staff is going to implement it, and this is the ultimate question. 7 years ago, when David O'Quinn, Commissioner David O'Quinn, asked us to take this to redo our zoning because our ordinances because they had not been done in greater than 50 years. So this is the ultimate question. Does this draft meet the original intent of the update effort that prompted the rewrite contract? Okay, the answer to that question, Mr. Commissioners, is absolutely, emphatically no. All right, is this draft easier to understand than the current ordinance for staff, the commissions, or the general public? Commissioners, the answer to it is absolutely no. Can it be interpreted or administered without additional resources and technical expertise on the part of not only the county staff, but the Glenn County property owners? The answer to that question, Mr. Attorney, is absolutely 100% no. This is a property rights killer. And we got a lot of work to do, folks, in my opinion. So that's the questions that I had. And like I said, when I asked the question, I already know the answer to them. Anybody that has read these ordinance rewrites would tell you the exact same thing that I just said. Thank you very much. Thank you to the public for coming. When you come back, please bring your neighbors with you when they come, because it's very important for these commissioners to see how important and how interested we are in this rewrite. Thank you.
I have one comment, if I can make it. The thing I was going to say for people making comments, I think it's really helpful if you can also, some people emailing comments to Stephanie and then we get them. You can do it that way. You don't just have to speak it. But the more specific, the better, because if we just hear that you don't like it and you have another idea, like we all need to publicly hear what that idea is. So, for example, I would say 100 miles suggestions, they were very specific. I heard the numbers that you're looking for. So if you oppose something, hearing exactly like what you want it to be instead is the most helpful. Otherwise, just knowing that you don't like it isn't as helpful.
To back her up, I got on the planning commission about 7 years ago because of this rewrite that was happening. And here we are 7 years later and we still haven't gotten through it. There's been a group of us working on this for literally 7 years, and we've put a lot of time into it, and it's got potential, and I hate just to go throw it out because it's difficult or it's new or there's some changes in here that are going to be hard for the staff to deal with. I think we have the ability to work through it and see it through. I think we all just keep working on it. We can get to a document that's going to be great for the community and that we can have for another 50 years.
Ask a question of staff just for clarity. This is like the toughest question to ask because I don't want anybody to think I don't love sea turtles. I will tell you our boat slams to a stop the moment we see one, and we all gaze and gawk and take videos, and we love them dearly. But I do have a question. So sorry I'm not back open to it, but at the point this goes into effect, it sounds like you immediately have to comply or turn your lights off at night. And I think that's a big safety issue and a big cost, especially when you're talking about complexes that it would require hundreds, possibly, of light fixtures that had to be addressed. And then you're asking those complexes to be in complete darkness on the beach side. I just think that's a public safety issue, and that it's not clear that it requires a building permit or not for it to go into effect, but I assume that we talked about this, I think, the last time. I just want to make sure that, this doesn't get passed in January and lights out everybody on the beach. There's a lot of those homeowners and complexes that are going through huge expenses right now, and you might not think it's a big expense, but it will be a substantial expense to some of them that they have to take the time to budget and possibly do an assessment, whatever might be involved, and they don't need to be in total darkness in that time period. So I just want to.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Does this mic sound on? Yeah, that's a very valid question, and as soon as there's an ordinance that is passed, it would become immediately effective unless there is a change to the effective date. So that could be, if there are sections that there could be significant issues with having a change overnight. There could be some sections that perhaps have a later effective date to allow kind of a grace period to work into that, and then perhaps during that time there could be more communications out in the public, with different partners about what these changes mean and when they will become effective. So that could be an option for some.
I would be in favor of giving them a 12-month period to have the process and change whatever needs to change, because you're not talking about a single homeowner that can make that decision on what they're going to buy, how much it's going to cost, who's going to pay for it, that sort of thing.
A lot of code changes are typically on an annual calendar basis anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope it's not going to kick in the next morning, but
we do have to add it.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I would just, in regards to the FA suggestion of going to 5 or 10 acres, the first thing my mind goes to is I think you could have a huge unintended consequence there. That if you all of a sudden say you can't do, it has to be 5 or 10 acres, then I'm going to go rezone my FA property to a residential zoning that could have a lot higher density if public utilities are available, and there's public utilities and a lot of FA zoning. Then I might go say, well, if I've got to rezone, I'm going to rezone where I could have 9,000 square foot lots or 12,000 or 6,000 square foot on the mainland where you did have half acre as the minimum. So now instead of getting 5 or 10 acre lots, you're getting, 12,000 square foot lots or whatever it might be. So I would just caution pushing that to be larger. I've sold a lot of properties to families that want FA zoning, know they're getting FA zoning, that don't want to care for 5 acres or 10 acres. But they don't want to live in an HOA neighborhood. They want to live a little further out. They want to have a little breathing room, but they don't want to care or pay for that kind of property. And I think you would have some detrimental things increasing the lot size that might be really unintended. And then I appreciate the roosters. I can't imagine having roosters next to you all night. So maybe that we can figure out something with that in those smaller lot size. I know that we did a rezoning on a property out at Lake Marianne, and that was one of the conditions, even though it was FA, they were not allowed to have roosters. I don't know if y'all remember that, they wanted to have horses, but, so, we said no roosters, so that was a big point of contention, so I do think that's as that becomes more and more popular, trying to figure out a middle ground for that, so, and then, I personally think the conservation, preservation subdivision, when it was created, was a great opportunity for the county to look for ways to reward developers and allowing them to do smaller lots if they preserve more land. But I do think there's a difference on some of those on the mainland versus St. Simons. I don't think it's a bad thing, it's an option, but some of the things that were discussed are not as problematic on the mainland. So I would just, sometimes we treat St. Simon's different than the mainland because we need to. That might be a case where it doesn't make sense to treat them the same if those are going to be changed. All my comments.
Well, thank you.
And please, Ms. Lee, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that our ordinance rewrite has any kind of ordinance, guidelines, regulations, rules for the homeless at all. I don't think it's even addressed anywhere. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was not added a homeless shelter, homelessness section to this.
It just seems like to me as much problem as we had in Glenn County with this issue, that we, as we're rewriting this, and these are the kind of issues that this rewrite has. There's big holes in it everywhere. You step on property owners' toes, there's big holes. I just think it would be a great time to have some kind of homeless ordinances so we can know I know what I can do and what I can't do. So why don't the homeless know what they can and what they can't do if we don't have any guidelines for it?
Is it in our current ordinance?
I don't think it's in the current ordinance.
No, sir. It's not. I mean, currently, if someone was interested in creating a homeless shelter or homelessness services provider, in a shelter with overnight accommodations, the route has been to go through a planned development district to enable that because we don't have that in any of the other ordinances. And that would remain the same in the new ordinance and still be PD.
What about a homeless person that just wanted to pitch a tent out at the other end of the Harold Pate building? We don't have any rules or regulations that engulf that.
We do have some provisions in our general code that address some of those items, but not in the zoning code, but they are in the code of ordinances.
All right. I got one more question. Just since Mr. Kennedy was here, you tell he was upset about his roosters. Are there any sort of buffer requirements towards for properties zoned the same with different uses, like something like that? Or can we implement some? If you're going to have roosters, you're going to have a buffer.
No, not currently. So there were some changes in this new draft regarding kind of the idea was sort of the backyard chicken idea. I mean, someone wanted to have up to 6 chickens on a residential lot. We didn't allow that in the old ordinance. That is in here. But currently, we did not end up regulating FA at all. So FA, all the current livestock type uses, poultry uses are still allowed. So roosters would still be allowed in FA. But that's some of the things we kind of looked at was, could we base it on the size of the lot in FA, or maybe what you're saying, if there's different uses. So that could be an option that we could look into. We haven't currently put that in. I think the hard part would be, because those uses could change, this owner has goats, next person doesn't, and that, so I think that'd be a little bit tougher, but there might be some options we can look at.
I do have one more question just to maybe help shed some public light on it. So the section 3.1.4, I think is going to be some issue, the contiguous parcels under common ownership. I know that it's been the practice if you go to get a building permit, if I own 2 lots in Oak Grove, let's say, and I build a house across them, they merge into one lot. But I think a lot of this is just thinking about one, substandard lots, but also families that own multiple lots and the residents, they could, and I just want to make sure I understand this correctly and that the public does. So I could own 4 lots in a row and I have a residence on 2 of them. If I go to get a building permit, if they are owned by the same person, if I owned all 4, you're going to merge all 4.
So you said your building permit is to add on to the existing house?
Sale of 2 lots.
Yeah, it'd be what those lots are touching. Yeah, so if you have 4 and the house is only on 2, we wouldn't we wouldn't say the other 2 have to be merged, but the 2 that the house crosses.
I don't think it says that.
Would be. Okay, and that may be, an area we need to clarify.
Section 3.1.4.
What's the point in making them merge? It's a land grab. If Papa and Granny Johnson, that lives on St. Simon's Island, has a house that's on 4 lots, and Papa told all 4 of his grandchildren he was going to leave them one of those lots, well, Papa died. Okay, the grandchildren's already been told all their life they were going to get a lot on St. Simon's Island, which is very significant. And Granny calls a local electrician and says, hey, half of my house last night, electricity went out on it. And the electrician comes over and says, Granny, you're right. You lost a leg on your electricity and you have to go to Glenn County and pull a permit so I can have the service disconnected and to fix your electricity. So she's going to lose 2 grandchildren's lots.
Only if that makes it bigger, the footprint has to get bigger to do the merge.
It says that you going to.
It says, now it might say something under substandard lots.
If you pull a permit.
Well, it says, and the footprint of the structure increases.
Yeah, so the idea was if someone was doing electrical work, plumbing work, and interior remodel, they could gut the whole structure if they're not expanding the footprint, and this would not be triggered. So this would be triggered by a structural addition. Expanding the footprint is the intent of it.
My follow-up question is, so let's say we pass the ADU. So I own 4 lots in a row. Let's say my mom does, that would be better. She owns 4 in a row. She says, Missy, I'm going to give you the house eventually, but right now we have a mortgage on it. I can't deed it over to you. We're not in that financial position. But let's build an ADU on the 4th lot. You going to merge all the lots?
So the ADU we would treat as a single family home, not an ADU on the fourth lot.
If it's on an individual lot.
Yeah, because it'd be
What
on
if
its own
what
lot.
if it expanded a lot?
So then it'd have to be merged if it was going to cross.
My problem with this part is there's an advantage to people that don't have mortgages, because what they're going to do when they hear this tonight and they own 4 lots is they're going to say, this one's going in this LLC, this one's going in this LLC, this one's going in this. But the people that have mortgages can't do that. And it's just inherently unfair. So if I'm sitting on a mortgage and I have 3 or 4 lots, I can't put them in different names. If I try to do that, my mortgage could be, the due on sale clause can happen. And so it puts, the folks that do have mortgages at a big disadvantage to folks that don't. And that's just, to me, inherently unfair. So that's just, I'm okay with, you want to build one house across 2 lots to do that. You agree before you do that they merge, but this going backwards and, messing up people's life plans for their 4 kids or whatever, or 3 kids or whatever it might be is a little bit more problematic for me. So.
Wouldn't all 4 of those lots don't have to be the collateral though for the mortgage?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but if they were, and then they saw this was coming, theirs are all going to be merged if they get a building permit that makes it bigger. Whereas the cash guy is going to say, I'm going to put each lot in a different LLC, and then they don't merge because they're not contiguous ownership.
See, that gets back to my question. did we make this whole county ordinance rewrite easier for the public to understand or not? The answer is absolutely no. There's so many things, unintended consequences that's gonna kill us, guys.
I think that's what we're trying to, we are trying to vet out some of them. I mean, we're not gonna get all of them, but that's why we've got all these smart people and all these smart people. Hopefully we can figure it out, but.
We've been trying to figure it out for 7 years.
I have a question about the beachfront artificial lighting. So I understand there's a lot of people with a lot of environmental concerns that have worked on this, but I think if people that owned beachfront property looked at this, I think we would have a room full of beachfront property owners that would probably reject most of the things in here. So what is the requirement? Like, we're probably going to have to change almost every property in the area. And like she said, that's massive to enforce right away. So shouldn't we maybe be noticing these people that we're going to do these changes? Because things like saying you can have no balcony lights above 24 inches. So you can only have lights from your knees and below. I know some elderly people that might want some lights a little higher they can see when they're walking their balcony. Things like your swimming pool and pool deck lights have to be turned off when not in use, period. So there's a lot of people like to go on vacation in the summer, in and out, and use their pool and hot tub, which I'm great with. So is their neighbor going to become a Karen that's calling the county all the time? And you're going to send code enforcement and be like, they're inside their house and their lights aren't off. So that's now a county zoning violation. And I don't really think we have personnel for that, nor do I think that's a good use at all of county personnel. And I think for people's safety, there should be some level of lighting allowed around your pool and hot tubs, even just to make sure no one's outside that's been having drinks and doesn't see. Like, to me, people's safety needs to trump the turtles, but we can do some stuff with the turtles. And additionally, I think that if people knew publicly that you can have no lighting for your trees, your vegetation, in your buildings, so we're saying essentially no landscaping lighting if you have a beachfront home. There's things like this that are a massive change. I think if some homes are tasteful and it's just like some backlighting on like the grass next to the tree and it's not projected towards the ocean, like that all has to die. And I don't really think there's been enough noticing at all for now we're just going to control how their house looks or property. I almost think we should have to notice these beachfront homeowner or property owners.
I think it'd be a good idea prior to the town halls and the next public hearing, if you guys that are the experts and working on this, that you come up with some alternatives. So, okay, we're gonna cut all your lights out, but here's what you can do, or you gotta get rid of these lights. Are there options?
Yeah, there are options. And not telling property owners what they should do with their property. That's a great option.
But I think it would help if they had some options for, if you're gonna make them get rid of their lights 24 inches up, are there some alternative lighting that you can use? Something for discussion.
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can work on, is kind of on the educational piece of, this ordinance does go through, written as this, what would you replace it with? What does that look like?
Right.
We can work with our community partners on something like that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a couple comments and piggyback on what was said earlier, especially about the FA. I live in an FA subdivision, Marshall and McKay, and I'm going to be non-compliant if we go to 3 acres on that, or 5 acres and all. I've got basically about a 20,000 square foot lot. It's all septic tank and well out there. Making everybody non-compliant would, be grandfathered in, I understand that, but no changes to the areas on that. A couple other things was in subdivision regulations, they're looking at going to, I believe it was 10 acres instead of 3 acres that's required to go through the sub-regs. Right now, you can do 3 acres or more, and I understand there were some issues when somebody created a lot that didn't have access. Well, that's kind of their problem, and I think if a surveyor prepared a plat for it and created it, number one, they ought to be on notice, and the other thing is report them to the board. Right there. Same thing with engineering, architects, the whole 9 yards. If they're doing something non-compliant that's in these regulations and they continue to do it, well then they need to be dealt with by their board on that. Another item was on St. Simon's Island, preliminary plats. Well, you cannot create a single-family residential lot on St. Simon's without going through preliminary and final plat. Right now, you can do that through the expedited process, and I think there's a lot of application for that. The other thing was on St. Simons, you have to go through preliminary and final plat. Well, preliminary plats go through the Island Planning Commission, and they haven't for years. And the one reason I understand why it was changed from that was the amount of lawsuits we had on St. Simons. Every time one got submitted, it didn't matter if it was in compliance, there was a lawsuit for that. And I think a lot of them have been cut back, at least what I've noticed anyway, on that. And that's a couple of the items. There's a few more things in there, but those are the main ones that I saw at the moment.
I had one more question. With the site coverage piece, so is any footprint addition, any driveway, shed, pool, addition to house, is that now gonna have to have the added expense of a survey? That includes drawing out everything on the lot and calculating the site coverage.
So that would need to be shown on the plan. So that is an additional ask of folks that are submitting their building permit plans. They will need to show that calculation so that our staff can verify it. So it doesn't say specifically survey, but it would need to be an accurate plan showing accurate site coverage.
Like, could I draw it, measure it, and draw it? Yeah,
I can tell you the answer to that. I just was made to get a draftsman to draw one for me.
Okay. Well, what I think my concern is obviously if you do any kind of major additions to your house, you hopefully do want to know where you're. But I mean, if I want to, I know where my corners are. I want to build a 10 by 10 shed, 10 by 20. I want to do the right thing. I want to get a building permit. I want to do all the things I was supposed to do. And I can accurately show anyone that it's within the setbacks. That just seems excessive expense to do something like that. And again, an unintended consequence is, I'm gonna pour my little drive, you gotta do it for a driveway pad, right? You're gonna have to get a survey if you wanna add, 6 feet to your driveway. That's, you're gonna encourage people to pour that on the weekend when no one's paying attention. Or you're gonna encourage them, to do their deck without, hopefully hope nobody notices. So I just think some thought needs to be in, kind of what size piece on an existing lot, what kind of size, square footage addition really warrants that kind of analysis. Because, a survey, depending on your lot size and what all you have on your lot and what surveyor you call, you're not talking about $200,
No.
So that would be a concern as well.
On that same line, are sidewalks, ground level patios and porches, just surface, they're not required to have a building permit, are they? If I wanted to do a 10 by 20 paver porch, I don't need a building permit for that.
Yeah, not for pavers or.
What
or
about just a
concrete.
driveway itself or a driveway pad? If you wanted to add 6 foot on the end for a parking space, that's not required to have a building permit, correct?
No, not a building permit for that. No.
Would you have to have one with this though, now with the site coverage?
No, you would not, but that brings to the question of, like you said, if someone's out there pouring and maybe they were already at 58% and then that driveway puts them over, that's a question of how would that be handled.
Who's gonna police the site coverage?
Yeah, it's still gonna be a code requirement, but.
Your neighbor.
Ms. Cook
Yeah.
is gonna police the site.
Yeah.
That's who's gonna police.
So we're saying a survey would be required, but we're not clear on what would be required.
So we define it as for site plan, which is what would be required for, because the terminology has changed. What we currently call site plan now in the code is changing to development plan. So site plan is like what we ask someone to submit with their building permit. And it says a plat, which shows the dimensions of the site and the location and size of proposed structures, driveways and parking areas, easements, setbacks, utilities, recreation areas, signage, lighting, trees, and uses to occupy the site. So it does not say, survey, stamped by some surveyor. And that's what we currently do now. So we accept, a drawing that is to scale and shows what everything is, but they are at different levels of that. Right.
Commissioners already know this, but the public needs to know, I think. We don't even have to do this. This county operated absolutely fine today. It operated fine 6 months ago. It operated fine 5 years ago. Our county has an exorbitant amount of money in savings that they've already taken from us. A lot of money, folks. So we know our tax commissioner's calculator is working good in this community. We don't know what this is going to do to our revenue when we implement this, and all the lawyers and all the players and the county staff, we don't have no idea what this is going to do to us. None. So I can tell you now, just from experience, I fought, scratched, did everything I could to keep this from going to being implemented 2 or 3 years ago. I never saw the Board of Realtors. I think Ms. New tried to get them involved one time, and they wasn't interested. The problem is now.
That's not true.
Okay.
They've been at the meetings. That's not true.
But they didn't get as involved as they are tonight. They didn't send somebody up here and ask for a rewrite to be stopped.
Yep, the one at the library.
Okay.
Said,
The
please
problem-
take the time so
The
that we
problem
can do
is,
this.
the real estate in Glenn County is at a crawl. There's hundreds of houses sitting all over Glenn County right now that's built, ready to sell, with no buyers and really no interest. Is that correct?
Not a huge, not a ton, but some. But
We have a bunch of them.
well,
We have a bunch of them.
yeah, we're about pre-COVID.
We have a lot of them. All right. So that's what gets people interested. What the point I was trying to make is their pocketbooks, and we don't understand exactly what this is going to do to everybody's pocketbooks. And this is not something we should just do willy-nilly. We should really vet this. We should really have professionals. And I don't care if it takes another 10 years, as long as it doesn't hurt our general public and our taxpayers, as long as it's not detrimental. I think we should take as much time as we possibly need to and have to get this correct. All right.
All right. I want to thank the public again for all their comments. Thank everyone for coming. There'll be no further business. This meeting is adjourned.